and welcome to Challenge Raters. I'm Theo, I do the drawing.
And I'm Neil, social media thing.
Good. I'm Sam.
Let me set the scene for you guys. Okay, so you're crossing along a long dead forest. Wilted trees, sodden ground. The low layer of fog. You hear a wolf howl in the distance. The moon is full, glimmering off the castle in the distance.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. You close in.
A little bit spooked.
The fog. You close in. The fog growing thicker and thicker. Bats flying through the air. You see him standing up there on the parapets. Today's vampire!
Jesus! Jesus
Right.
Christ. Vampire. I wasn't ready for vampire.
Okay, so D&D vampires. They have
Jesus.
loads of powers and things they can do. They have super cool Lair stuff.
Yeah.
And then they have that lawful evil, wanting to rule aspect, as well as twisted emotions into hate.
And, of course, I have a deep hatred of all things that suck blood. Oh. Okay, but a castle. I like a castle. We haven't had a building. But yeah, okay. Ooh, vampire. Right, okay, vampires.
Yeah.
Now, everyone knows all vampire legends and mythologies and all that are quite different, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variants.
For example, vampires in Blade are very weak and are easily disposed of with so little effort that Blade just makes it a fun game for himself.
And in Asia, they jump up and down a lot.
They do. They hop about. It's very good. But D&D vampires are, I think, they're pretty heavily inspired by Bram Stoker classic Dracula tale.
It's one of my favourite things about the D&D vampire is that you know exactly what he's going to be doing and how it translates into the game.
Right, yeah,
and it can just be very fun with that. Like, they sleep in coffins like they do in D&D. You know he could maybe turn into a bat.
Yeah, and control possibly some other thralls. It'll have perhaps some will over wild the children of the night. As of course, I think do they have a wolf? Because that's a thing Dracula does. They can control wolves. He can.
As I alluded to in my little synopsis introduction thing. Vampires have, again, I think it's the first creature of ours to be like this. They have their lair effects, what their being in their proximity cause.
So of course, and one of the reasons it's the first thing of that, because I think this is probably the highest challenge rating thing that we are doing so far, as in actual challenge rating in terms of how hard it is to fight.
But you wanted something that and quote wore clothes.
Wore clothes. I want something that wears clothes. So I'm going to draw a naked vampire. Let's just be real here.
And if you want something to wear clothes, it's going to have a pretty high power level. Not just anyone can wear clothes.
Not in the monster manual. I think there is there's basic bandit. I think. Yeah,
there is right at the back. There's the bandit and
that might
cultists.
Be too many. I might have given myself too many gargoyles to do later, but it doesn't matter. I'll get to it. So we're gonna have some sort of spire as well, because it's a good old fashioned fantasy castle. And there'll be, I'll get there in a minute. But yeah, so
I'm liking the composition so far.
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully all right. So the vampire, he's or she, of course, very strong, very smart, very everything from what I remember of its stats. It's just great.
Yes. Challenge rating 13.
13's a tough boy.
You kill one of these, you're going to get 10,000 XP.
Ooh. It's a good amount.
So, just to hop things off again, I think it's the first creature that we've done that also has legendary resistances as per the book. Oh,
yes, so of course that's the DM's classic, man, I'm annoyed that my cool monster's not getting to do
its cool thing.
So I gotta have a jail free card, which is 100% a necessary thing, but can be very frustrating to play against. I'm not.
The monster is just so supernaturally powerful that it has.
Exactly, it has a will that extends beyond the rules.
Exactly. Now, just to touch on vampires, there's some great stuff written in the description about how every emotion that they had in life, because of their own death, it gets twisted. So, love becomes obsession.
Right. Okay. That's quite interesting.
And friendship becomes jealousy of your friends. And like you may have your emotions, you may not have your emotions, but whatever they are, they're tainted by you even becoming the vampire.
Now, I will also say, speaking of vampires, I have been watching JoJo, and that starts with a lot of vampires. So I might go for a bit of a JoJo pose, where aka not good for you spine.
Oh yeah.
And just
if any creature in the monster manual is going to be JoJo posing,
exactly,
it is almost certainly the 18 charisma vampire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
valid argument.
There's like... Okay, maybe not that. Maybe not give it a hello my honey, hello my baby.
Hello my honey, hello my ragtime gal.
I'm gonna have to think about this. Oh, because I want it to be fabulous. Because that is a thing. I mean, as I say, I hate all things that suck blood, and of course, as a lawful good person myself, anything that's evil, and I believe they're lawful evil.
They are lawful evil.
Yes, so that obviously
domineering.
That obviously rubs me the wrong way, but they are fabulous.
I can't go amiss about talking about vampires without talking about Strahd von Zarevich.
Of course,
D&D.
Yep.
Strahd, of course, he has his own campaign. Is based completely off Strahd. In fact, he's important.
And as of his 5th edition lore, he is the vampire in control of Ravenloft, and everything about Ravenloft and his tales of woe and loss and kind of almost an anti-hero, but clearly still a villain within that.
I mean, he's a hero that you have to now put down, as it were.
He was a great hero in war, and then he became this. And that's just something about the vampires, that they have their life after they became a vampire, but they also have their life before they became a vampire.
Yeah.
There's
That's
this
awesome.
knowledge about what they were that's really kind of... It makes them good villains.
Definitely.
They can have ambition, or they can have a lack of ambition, just twisted status quo idea of wanting to live forever.
The idea of having a villain who has gone through their own character arc is something that you can do with some of the more human villains that you can't necessarily do with,
a Hydra.
A Hydra. Yeah, not so much.
Now I'm gonna bring up a show which, because of it's so similarities to our name, Critical Role. Not to be confused with Critical Role, our soon-to-be show. No.
Yeah. That's when we're going to start playing.
Yeah, Critical
Our televised...
Role. Yeah. Televised novella. Anyway, in season 1 there was 2 vampires.
Oh really? I have not watched or listened to all of Critical Role because there's a lot of it.
But there was 2 vampires who were villains during probably one of the best early arcs, episode 20 onwards, and right. I hate to say that I can't remember their name now because it's been so long since Critical Role season 1.
Yeah.
But they were like they were a couple. And they would yuck it up about, I'll finish them, my dear. Stuff like that. And one of them was a fighter, one of them was a caster. And when you learnt their backstory, they had a sad backstory about one of them resurrecting the other one into a vampire and things like that. It was a nice little story to itself.
That's cool.
And then having them, even after all of that, relatable stuff, being evil, domineering people who conquered this guy, one of the characters' villages.
Right. Yeah.
He was supposed to, his family were all murdered by them and things. It brings it around that they're people as well.
Yeah, and it means that again you can go tragic with it, or you can go, classic. Of course, Vlad the Impaler is supposedly the origin of old Dracula stuff, and he was not a nice guy.
No.
And if he then became a vampire, he continued to not be nice. So you can have, if you don't want to have a complicated, tragic sort of element,
you don't have to.
You do not need to have one at all.
Or you have that tragic element, and then this is the thing that you have to do if you're DMing this thing, make sure that they are clearly irredeemable now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because otherwise you don't want your party to feel guilty at having the cool fight.
Yeah, this is something that you and I have both watched a lot of Matt Colville. He has a lot to say about this sort of thing, but making the players feel like they're being heroic is kind of the point. And punishing them for doing something that you've kind of set them out to do.
Yeah.
is not really the point, or it shouldn't be the point, unless people really want that. I'm probably going to go back and do this whole bit. Yeah.
I am very into it. At the
Yeah,
moment,
something that I like about, and this is why I said I want someone that wears clothes, because you can design clothes more so than you can design animals.
Yeah, there's a lot more creative liberty there when it comes to a outfit.
Yeah. And of course, vampires could use weapons. Why shouldn't they be able to? I do believe their stat block sort of, they have claw attacks and stuff like that, which they can do, but there's nothing against giving them,
absolutely nothing.
Anything really.
I believe
same with armor and stuff.
Explicitly in the critical role, one of them used a greatsword, which was a cursed item that the party ended up taking on, like a hunting blade.
Right. That's cool.
And you can give vampires magic equipment, and because you mentioned the stat block,
Just bring on those numbers.
so these. I'm just going to tell you their lowest stat is 15.
15.
18 strength, 18 dex, 18 con, 17 intelligence, 15 wisdom, 18 charisma.
Jesus.
They're better than you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I think that really is reflected in like what they're meant to be doing. The fact that they are just great. They're super people. And that really goes a long way to explain like the whole like characterization that they generally have. Obviously, you can make your vampires friendly if you want.
Well, you have to have a dark world to do that.
Yeah, it's true. And also,
have a dark world where the darkness has won, and the lawful evil is way better than the chaotic.
Yeah, but so like, and that means you could do something interesting with like wondering if this thing that you've made your ally is something that you can trust, and how far you can trust it or not. That could be an interesting angle that you go with.
By the way, I'm really into this. I'm getting some Sephiroth-y vibes.
Yeah.
It's very Sephiroth now that I look at it, isn't it? Why have it just start with hitting you with weapons when you can... I mean, with claws, when you can make it resort to claws when it gets on to lower health. Vampires going feral is like... That's a great thing you can do with vampires, because they start as austere and very much superior than thou, over the topness. And then when things stop going their way, that's when they start going nuts and screaming and hitting you with their claws.
That will make the party cockier, and I can feel the party reacting to that. Like,
exactly.
Bouncing off that. You can have witty repartee with a vampire if your party want to.
Exactly, and you can't
if
you
your party
can't do
come
that
in
with a ghoul.
Your party can come and be like, oh yeah, you're a expletive, and he can just swipe it off his shoulder and call them savages and stuff like that.
Exactly,
yeah.
And it means that the thing about vampire as well is you can have it very simple, or if you want to have like a complicated political world that your game inhabits, then a vampire can fit very well into that as something that's either taking part in the politics and manipulating stuff behind the scenes, or as something that's feels they're above it all, and maybe all the local lords are like finally fed up with this vampire that's been lording over them, and you've been sent to go deal with it somehow. I don't know. I've given it a very generic look in the face right now. I'm very conscious of zooming in. So what I'll probably do, as in I'm not going to zoom in these videos in the actual sketching phase, because that it's kind of gross to look at. But once I'm drawing it, I'm going to really get in there, and it's going to be over the top as hell, I should think.
Wonderful. Now, Sam, now we have fought vampires before together in like the...
Real life.
In real life and
but
in
anyway, but back to the game.
Yeah.
Back to the game. We have fought vampires before, and this is one of probably the most annoying things that ends up always happening to parties that probably you and me can agree on, is charming.
Oh, yeah. It's such a powerful ability, and it could just be catastrophic, really, and it's so annoying.
Because it's one of those things where it can sort of a death spiral thing in that you are down a party member, and they're up a party member, and also it's a party member that they have that you're not really trying to just like get rid of as quickly as possible.
Yes.
But I seem to remember like the vampires like charm has like special rules about it as well. About
yes,
it's not just like charm person. Yeah,
let's go over some of that. So the vampire has there's core mechanics of a vampire that you would imagine from real life carry on over into the game. Yeah. They can bite people to restore hit points. Normally, they will have to grapple them using their unarmed strikes. Their unarmed strikes have a little revise a little bit on the end that says they can then try and grapple, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they can then pull you in an attempt to bite you.
Yeah.
Now, their charm makes you seem like they're your friend, and you will act upon what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fight your allies. But what it does mean is you're always a willing target for their bite.
Right.
So
they've always got a health source.
Happy to lend a helping hand or neck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only way that allies will break out of said charm, they get to repeat their effect, not when they're damaged by anyone, but only when they are damaged by the vampire and its allies.
That's right, that's hard to like deal with. That's very hard to deal with.
Yeah, a good DM a DM who really wants to be a dick will never attack
The charmed
character.
a charmed person.
Yeah.
I think the difficulty there is for the party to try and finagle the situation in which it happens.
It forces to bite him or something, because that's what it's meant for. It's meant to charm and bite. Or, for instance, in a non-combat scenario, the vampire could charm somebody in a meeting to agree with them, or charm someone to turn the blind eye as they do something else.
Yeah.
And that's just a core being part of what a vampire is influencing people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one thing I'm curious about that I don't know too much about, and was mentioned, was about obviously the Lair actions and how that can vary.
Yeah.
I'm
actually. Yeah. Is there anything specific that
it has regional effects.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can tie into this drawing? Perhaps might be quite difficult, but we'll see. It's already quite busy as a sketch, I will say.
Well, there's a couple of things I do want to say.
Yeah.
Sure.
About that is that the vampire's lair doesn't have lair actions as of the book.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
But it does have those lair effects.
Okay.
So everything
right.
I discussed about the local plant life being dead, the low level fog, the large amounts of wolves and rats and bats attracted to the creature.
Right. Really stereotypical great vampire stuff. I mean, stereotypical, but it's great.
I remember in my Sunday campaign, they were closing in on one of my vampires' hideouts.
Mm-hmm.
And the land turned dead and dying from a forest.
And
they had an encounter against some local wolves. And as they kind of closed in, there was a small little hamlet that the vampire was like lording over.
Very classic. And
everyone there was gaunt and, not the best. And the crops were diseased. And then, they got into the castle and fought the vampire. Everything, went great. And the vampire also has their spawn, their like allies.
Yeah, they have vampire spawn, which is kind of I think it is classed as undead. It's basically
I'd count them as like a feral vampire, basically.
Yeah, it's a kind of weaker vampire.
And they'll also
it has similar sort of things going for it. Anyway, yeah.
And I completely forgot this when we were talking about the greatsword. There are in fact rules in the book for that.
Oh yeah.
Yes, there's one of those little green boxes in the monster manual that's variant rules for vampire warriors and spellcasters.
Oh god, spellcasters. Yikes.
Yeah, they cast up to 5th level with Dominate Person if they're a spellcaster.
5th?
And they get their stat line changes by getting a greatsword, as we had talked about in the warrior stat block. Plus 9 to hit. Yep, 2d6 plus 4 because their strength isn't that high, but it's still coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things where, again, I think it'd be real a nice bit of flavour for them to lose their shit first, and then
they fight,
chuck away
and then when
sword.
they need to feed.
Exactly, getting some health back from these adventurer boys. When I do these gargoyles, I'll have a proper think about what they look like. And of course, they are going to be actual gargoyles in that water will be coming out of their mouths. Because it's not a gargoyle if it doesn't have water coming out of its mouth. It's just a grotesque.
Oh.
I think that's true.
Got you there, gothic nerds.
I hope that's true, because I've said it now. I'm pretty sure it's true. Of course, it's not a gargoyle by D&D rules. Maybe we'll get to the gargoyle at some point. Anyway. But yeah, vampires, they're a cool, very, very cool villain. Again, as with Strahd, the whole campaign, you can really set a whole campaign around vampires, as many games have, and many shows, books, series of anything. I think something speaks to the common peoples about fighting a deliberately made out to be aristocratic, overbearing
Count
Ponce.
Rees-Mogg.
Oh, plus
Political. But
but yeah, so,
not even political. Look at
yeah,
it.
I mean, if there's any politician who's a vampire, it is Mogg.
In keeping with the idea of like tradition and stuff, is there anything in regards to like special rules for like actually being able to kill a vampire? Because obviously there's a variety of things that certain things say will are effective against the vampire, or can you kill it in a certain way, or if you kill it, it'll return to Is it weak to garlic? No, is what I'm asking.
I am going to tell you now that the stat page for vampire is a full page.
It is huge, isn't it? It's okay. I love that. I think that it's the same with the mummy. It's just one full there's a lot here.
There's a lot to take in.
I'll shorten it down. When a vampire is reduced to 0, they turn to mist and begin to return to their coffin and rest area.
Oh, because you have to kill them in their lair, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Which is nuts.
And just to say this again, vampires have regeneration. 20 hit points at the start of its turn if it has at least 1 hit point and isn't in sunlight or running water.
That's a lot.
If the vampire takes radiant or damage from holy water, it doesn't function. So you can get the proper minutiae vampire hunting. There's nothing written here about garlic, Sam, but I would put garlic in there. That would be fun. Maybe give it disadvantage if you've got a clove of garlic around your neck, like some French peasant.
Yeah.
If you obviously you bulk up eating on garlic the night before, so your blood is bad to them.
Oh.
A classic. I can't remember if that's from something specific, but I have seen it in something.
And just to say, everything that you know about vampires is also written into this full page. The vampire can't enter a residence without an invitation from one of its occupants.
I love that rule.
The best vampire rule.
I think it's so good.
The vampire takes 20 acid damage if it ends its turn in running water.
Acid? Really?
Yep.
That's good. I like that a lot. That's
Stake
funny.
to the heart. If a piercing weapon made of wood is driven into the vampire's heart while the vampire is incapacitated in its resting place, the vampire is paralyzed until the stake is removed.
That's good. I'm really happy that's the...
Finally, sunlight hypersensitivity. The vampire takes 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight.
Oh, so not only does it get rid of its healing, it straight up reverses
damage.
That's really good.
Yep, and it has a disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, so it's lame.
Yeah, it's bad in the sun. That's cool. Yeah. What a good monster.
Yeah, it's super interesting with the... Oh, another thing I just have to mention.
Sure.
The vampire can call other creatures to its aid. Bats and rats and those things that are attracted naturally to its castle.
To its lair, yeah.
Yep, it can summon a lot of them.
Okay.
Like up to 3d6 wolves, 2d4 swarms of bats or rats.
Jesus Christ. That's funny.
And they all obey its spoken command.
Obviously, yeah.
The beasts remain for 1 hour or until the vampire dies.
Yeah, an hour is long enough, I think.
Yeah.
And this is once a day, so the vampire will get this once a fight. Even if it gets away and you chase it back to its lair, it won't be able to do this.
Okay. So you got to bait that out and then run away.
And they are also shape changers, as you could imagine.
Yeah,
They can turn into bats or mist.
Yeah. I guess like Misty Step is like a thing that they have innate. Yeah. As in the
they gain
spell.
like a fly speed, when they're bats or mist.
Okay, so I'm going to call this sketch, like, I can't really add more to this sketch right now. So I think we'll come back, maybe have a bit more of a chat about the vampire, and look at the really good drawing that it hopefully will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at picture of vampire.
Let's have a look at picture of vampire. My favourite sentence, delivered perfectly.
Is this VAMPYRE or VAMPI?
Vampire.
It's not a vampire with a Y. It's a vampire with a... Yeah.
Is it a vampire or is it a French vampire?
Von Pierre. Hang on, where's my notepad?
Oh shit.
Von Pierre.
Oh.
That is Von
boy.
Pierre. I have decided.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
But yeah, that's the vampire
That
I drew. based off the sketch.
Oh, I love it.
That is quintessential vampire right there.
Oh, I love the half breastplate thing.
Yeah, I wanted to do again because I've been complaining to myself and to Sam occasionally about how whenever I'd have to draw like a cave or something, it's something quite grey, and then I realised this picture was going to end up quite colourless as well if I wasn't careful. So I deliberately gave him like gold, shiny armour and yellow hair and such, just because otherwise it would have been a bit monotone.
I like the pointy ears too.
Yeah, again, that was something which is like that's like a vampire thing, isn't it? I thought to myself, I was like, I'm pretty sure it is.
Well, look, nothing says a vampire has to be human.
No, you get a vampire elf,
and that's like that's a really really good point, and it's something which I'm annoyed is not like actually in the book, and it's true of a lot of things. Like, why are tieflings humans who are descended from demons? Why is there no dwarf tieflings? Why are vampires always humanoid? Why no dwarf vampires? Why no gnome vampires? You could do that. And that's what's great about it.
It's the movie Leprechaun.
One of the things I really like about the vampire, and all the monsters that I really like have this in common, is that you can make them characters much more than you can with a lot of stuff. Or it's a lot easier to make them characters. For example, a Hydra. Obviously, you can give a Hydra loads of lore and backstory, but if you're sticking to a Hydra as a dumb, crazy monster, there's only so much you can do. But a vampire, it can have a whole person and history before it even became a vampire, and then even more after that. It can have a name that people know and fear.
That's like character squared.
Exactly. They can be really stuck into the history of it, or you can just have them be like a weird reclusive person if you really want. And, that's fine.
Yeah. You could have an adventure set in a mansion that used to be a vampire's.
Yeah,
the shadow of a vampire is enough.
And again, because the vampire is like a monster that, I don't think anyone's sitting down to play D&D and doesn't have any like preconceptions of what like a vampire is going to do or be like. So, and as I think we mentioned it in the Ghoul, if you were you could like trick people into thinking something's a vampire. People going missing in a city because people expect like a vampire to potentially be a lot more urban because, of course, with the book, that's the whole plot of Dracula.
It's basically Dracula comes to London.
Dracula moves to London is the plot. But yeah, so it's one of those ones that people have loads of preconceptions about, but I don't think that they'd be like disappointed to encounter if you did it really well.
No.
Talking about the art, I love that arm behind your back thing, like he's a fencer style.
Oh yeah, I don't have to draw his hand either. But yeah, again, as I say, the rapier, of course, in real life, a fighting rapier, not a epee or a sport one, was a pretty long, heavy thing. I think I can't remember where I heard it, but I think rapiers on average were heavier than most longswords.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because they're like thick and sturdy because they weren't meant to flex as much as other swords because they're meant to just point and pierce stuff. They weren't like hugely widely used, I don't think, though. But yeah, they were not as long as I've drawn here. Again, unless this character is sort of like 5 feet tall, which they might be. Again, Norman's there, and he's looking quite big.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a big head there, Norman, so I don't know how tall this vampire is.
And Norman's right there. Norman's going to get him, dude.
He's getting up there. He's whittled down his stick. He's read the book. He knows.
No.
But he is clearly apprehensive.
He wants to immobilise that vampire.
That's the thing. He knows he's got a breastplate, obviously. He's like,
I don't think this is going to work.
He's going to immobilise him and then just push him off.
Exactly. Oh, God.
I love the destroyed castle as well. That's very cool.
There's a reason it's destroyed, and that reason is I couldn't be bothered to draw more gargoyles. But it looks neat, so it's okay.
It's got this idea of decay that is like inherent with the vampire's long life.
I'm going to show you guys another picture I did of the vampire because we had a bit of time.
Kill surprise.
So I drew a second one. I was going to make this its own video, but then I thought me talking to myself for like 20 minutes wasn't necessarily going to be a good idea. Maybe in the future I'll do stuff like that. We'll see. Anyway, there you go. That's the vampire. Vampire I drew.
That's the Kurgan.
The thing about the show is that I'm given behind opening the curtain here for everyone watching. I don't know what you guys are going to give me before the episode, so I don't necessarily have time to think about what I would do. But what I've drawn here, because I'm into Viking, early medieval, that sort of era when I do D&D stuff. So I've drawn, as you say, a sort of a barbarian warlording. Like I try to think of like Vlad the Impaler is like the traditional like inspiration for like a vampire, and having a sort of getting stuck in there, gross warrior, slightly barbaric.
He has messed those dudes up.
And again, I've gone real over the top with the background there, but I wanted to get across like the sort of the bat stuff as well. So he's got like, and he's turned to mist to make weird bat ears, and he's got, I don't know, it's a bit silly, but that if I was to do a vampire, I'm more likely to do the second one more so than the first one. Although I still like both of them, and again, like if you're doing a setting that can have a gothic vampire, then that means it's probably easier for you to have the sort of the sneaking around the city, the dual life stuff, more so than if you want to have just this guy's the local lord, everyone's terrified of him, and he's a vampire, but what can you do because of feudalism and stuff.
Yeah, this is cool. I like the Vlad the Impaler angle. You can imagine, like later on down the campaign, you see the battlefield and there's just this unstoppable vampire.
Just tearing through the ranks kind of thing.
And the thing is, it's something that if you've got time travel in your campaign, who says you don't, you can have a vampire back in the day when they are doing that sort of thing, and they're very openly vampire because no one can stop them. And then like 200 years in the future, they've had to sort of rein it in and pretend to be a regular person to fit in with society. I mean, hey, that's...
Could go further.
Could be interesting.
You could say feudalism was made by vampires. Your campaign could be evil characters.
And it's also that,
Yeah, a vampire would be a very good patron in an evil character.
That is a good point as well. Like, having a vampire smart enough to be something that you can deal with, as in talk with. If there is a greater evil, or more chaotic evil that can't be reasoned with, then maybe a vampire would be a good ally. Just playing the game in general. If your character is lawful good and you come across someone who is definitely evil, you don't necessarily... There's more to it than just going, you're evil, so I will now kill you.
Like, if you're playing a lawful good character and not the paladin I will smack all evil kind of lawful good, you're actually being a reasonable person, you can easily have a lawful evil character in the party.
Yeah, and I guess there's more a point about playing the game in a way that is, like, actually a bit more, like, in-depth and complicated than just going, I'm good, I destroy evil stuff, or I'm chaotic neutral, so I just do evil things when I feel like it. Which is what most people do.
Never done that before.
You've never done that before.
No idea what you're talking about.
Do we have to do a Nuremberg for your character, Sam? Is really what I'm going to say.
I am very guilty as well. We were all young once. It's a cool monster. I really love making characters, and you can do that with it. You could probably do it with a manticore. I'm just lazy. I like designing clothes and outfits. so for me, Vampire's awesome. I'd probably give it a challenge rating of 16.
Okay.
That's what I'm putting it. I'm putting the Vampire at 16.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable.
Yeah, 16 is exactly what I had in my head as well when I was thinking of it.
That means it's good.
Yeah.
That means it's accurate.
Yeah, so I'm going to go for a 16 as well. I think they make a really good, big bad for a campaign. Yeah, they make a super interesting one. Obviously, what we've talked about for the past, however long it's been, 40 minutes, whatever, kind of explains it. I'm not going to go through it all again. They're really cool. 16 for vampires.
You know what? So here's my thing. Yeah. I was originally a 15, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then when you told me you drew two pictures of completely different styles of vampire, I went, that's going to add a 1. So I'm at 16 as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Unilateral.
This is the first time. It's universal. It's 16. That's all good.
Most campaigns could probably accommodate an area that has a vampire lord doing stuff in it.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the main attraction, it could be a place that the party could know about or go there. And there's just a lot to them that are kind of unique to vampires, as a monster.
I think having something which the party can either deal with in a traditional swords and boards and sorcery way, or in a political discussion-y way, I think is neat as well. Because I think if your party know that there's a vampire on the map, they will immediately possibly think, let's go kill it, but they can also think they'll know it's something that they could potentially reason with in some way, or bargain with at least. Which is not the case of perhaps a manticore. As we said when we first discussed it, we had no idea it could even talk.
Yeah.
That was a complete surprise.
My last comment is kind of along all this stuff that you've been saying, is that there's an angle with the vampire that is not just villainy but super villainy. Where
that might be that's a really good way of putting it. I like that a lot.
Like a vampire can tie you to a table and shoot a laser between your legs.
Yeah,
like
a manticore cannot.
A manticore can't.
I challenge ye.
Like a Fate of the Realm style event can be based around the machinations of a vampire, or a powerful minion of the final lich, true. Or it could be anything.
I'm thinking if you were to do a vampire lord as a minion, it would be a Starscream trying to betray, trying to get on top.
That'd be great. Lawful evil, always looking up.
Yeah. Hey, some more people have subscribed recently, which is great. Hey, if you enjoy it, why don't you subscribe? We'll be making videos whenever we can.
Maybe share it with your friends who are also interested in rolling dice of different specifications.
I do realise we don't really talk much about the drawing, but if you just like watching a drawing happen as well, that does happen a bit. And
it's again just the sentence that we always say: we will never stop doing this until the day we die. I think that's what we said, isn't it?
But and ring the bell. Do people say ring the bell or click the bell? I don't know. They should say ring the bell. Surely they should say ring the bell.
Do a ding.
Bong that bell.
Bong the
ding
bell.
it.
Oh, no.
Bong the bell.
No bong.
Raise the bongers.